Assalamualaikum class. This is the last part of this chapter with the lesson 3 name, and we are going to cover the Mesopotamian civilization again. So the objectives for this lesson is discuss some of their kings made laws to govern their kingdom. We're going to discuss about the rulers, which were very famous in the type of Mesopotamian civilization. Describe the invention of calendar as a remarkable discovery. Yes, one of the discovery we have discussed a few discoveries before, but one of the discoveries that we are going to discuss, which was very famous after writing, is the calendar, and highlight the reason for declination of the civilization. Obviously, this civilization was declined. What was the reason? How the civilization was ended? We're going to discuss it. So the resources are the images again, and there is a textbook page numbers 3 to 5. So we're going to cover the area of a textbook from page number 3 to 5. Now, the first thing we're going to do is the Code of Hammurabi. Now, the Code of Hammurabi, first let me tell you, code means rules, and Hammurabi means it's the name of a ruler of Mesopotamia, especially of their capital, Babylon. Now, let's discuss about the history of Babylon. Babylon was founded as a minor city in 1894 BCE. It was first Babylon was a minor city. It was not that much famous, but in the rule of Hammurabi from 1792 BCE to 1750 BCE, it was flourished. Now there were some few reasons because Hammurabi he gave a kind of stability to the country and he started putting the taxation. That's why the city started flourishing. Third thing was that he freed it from the foreign rule. There were some other rulers who were foreign. So Hammurabi, which was the local, he came and he freed it from the foreign rule. And other than this, Hammurabi, he conquered the whole of southern Mesopotamia, bringing stability and the name of Babylonia to the region. Now, one of the most important work of the first dynasty of Babylon was the compilation in about 1754 BC of a code of laws called the Code of Hammurabi. Now, when Hammurabi he was governing the Babylon, and he made a code. He made some code of laws. He outlined some laws for the people who are living over there, and they were known as the Code of Hammurabi. Now, Hammurabi's code is one of the oldest deciphered writing of the significant length in the world. The code it was so much in detail that it was one of the writings which took a lot of time for deciphering. Now, it was written in about 1754 BC by the sixth king of Babylon, Hammurabi, because he was the sixth king of the Babylon. And the code was written on stone, steel, slabs, and clay tablets. Okay, it was not written on one place; it was written on a mixture of different things. It was consist of 282 laws which scaled punishment depending on the social status, adjusting an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Now, the codes, the laws, the punishments are very strict. They believe that if somebody has taken your eye, in return, you have a right to take an eye. If somebody has broken your leg, you have a right to break the leg of the other person. You cannot compensate it with the money, with anything else. For example, if a person from a noble class broke an enslaved person's arm, they would have to pay a fine. Whereas if an enslaved person broke another noble person's arm, the offending noble would have their arm broken. Now, the problem in those codes were that there was a kind of social uh, differentiations. Like it was good for the people, for the noble people, but it was not. There wasn't any kind of justice for the poor people. For instance, if the noble people, if somebody has broke the arm of a noble person, they can pay it through paying the money. But if some enslaved person, if a poor person has broken the arm of a noble person, then obviously in return he would be physically tortured. These laws were strict, but they didn't apply fairly to everyone. Like I have discussed, that for the poor it was different, for the rich it was different. The rich and powerful people got a lighter punishment than the poor. Now, other than the famous rulers of the Mesopotamia, other than the Hammurabi, we have Ashurbanipal, we have Nebuchadnezzar, and then we have the Sargon. But the two which we are focusing is the Hammurabi and Nebuchadnezzar. You'll come to know about it. Now, the architecture, as I have discussed, that Mesopotamia has a very important thing about the architecture. They were very famous for their architecture. So their architecture, they were known for its art and architecture. Their temples have beautiful and amazingly realistic relief carving on the walls and the doors. And if you have ever visited Iraq, you can find them right away there. Now, Hanging Gardens of Babylon. Now, if we talk about architecture, then one thing which was very famous at the time of Mesopotamia, it was the Hanging Garden of Babylon, and it was one of the seven wonders of the world. Now, it was built by the greatest king Nebuchadnezzar, and one of the seventh wonders of the world. The Babylon king then set about making his capital one of the most splendid cities in the world. He thought that my capital should be distinguished from the other capitals. That's why he built the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. Now, the gates, if you look at the Hanging Gardens of the Babylon, the Ishtar Gates was built in 575 BC, which is the starting entrance of the garden, with its fine towers and depiction in tiles of the both real and imaginary animals. And it is a 7 to 20 kilometers brick double wall surrounded the city, the largest ever built. And then possibly he added the extensive pleasure gardens whose fame spread throughout the ancient world. So if you go and search about the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, you'll come to know that it has a very unique and rare things inside. Now, the invention, one of an important invention other than the writing, was the invention of the calendar. Now, Sumerians, because we have discussed that the people who are living in the Mesopotamia, they are known as the area is known as Sumeria, and they are known as Sumerians. So the Sumerians were the first one who invented the calendars. What they have done, they have divided the calendars into this 12 months and based on the cycle of the moon. Now, as you know, the 12 months, they are shorter by the 11 days than a solar system. That's why uh, they have added a leap year after every 3 years to catch up with the sun. And to keep a record, they have a habit of keeping the record of time, and which helped them to develop a knowledge of astronomy. So they were good astronomers as well. Now, as we are discussing about the civilization, so we have discussed about the languages, we have discussed about their livelihood, we have discussed about their inventions. Now, the main important thing is about their religion, who they used to follow. Now, Sumerians believed and worshipped many gods, so they were polytheists. They developed who they believed were very powerful and were like humans. Many of these gods controlled natural forces and were also associated with astronomical bodies such as the sun, moon, and stars. So they used to worship sun, moon, and star. They believe that there is a god for the sun, there is a god for the moon, there is a god for the stars. When they were not pleased, they had the belief that when the gods are not pleased with the humans, they used to punish them by sending natural disasters, floods, storms, and earthquakes. Now, let's come to the decline of the Mesopotamian civilizations. Uh, if we go through the history, there is no particular reason for the declination, but the two main reasons that if we can surface are the war and the faulty irrigation system. The faulty irrigation system is a logical one because mainly the Mesopotamians, they were developed on the agriculture system. So if there will be no irrigation, there will be no water. Obviously, they won't be able to grow the crops. There will be no good agriculture. So there was something happened in the irrigation system. Some faults were there. That's why this civilization ended. But what happened in the war? Well, Mesopotamian lifestyle was destroyed by war. The different city states were fighting for the control of each other's land and would wage out conflicts among each other to gain territory. They mostly fought for farmlands and would wage all excuse me which weighed all over conflicts among each other to gain territory. As you know, that Mesopotamia was a rich civilization surrounded by the two rivers. That's why the other civilization they want to take this area. That's why they were having many wars. Another important observation is that irrigation techniques are also one of the chief reasons for the decline of empire. The rivers were higher than the surrounding plains because of built-up slits in their riverbeds, so the river for irrigation flowed onto the fields by gravity. Once water was into the field, it could not drain away easily because the fields were lower than the rivers. Another thing was the flooding. Now, just because they were having a lot of constructions going on, they were building the rivers, the building the cities near the rivers. The level of the river it rises and it flooded away most of the cities. As the water evaporated, it not only left its dissolved mineral salts behind, but also drew salt outward from the lower levels of the soil. So by 23 BC, agriculture economy of the Mesopotamians begins to shatter as the soil could no longer support plantation. So just because there was a water, there was a flooding, and when the flood was over, it was evaporated. They left the um minerals, the salts over there, and salts are not a good thing to grow the crops again. So that's why it did not support the plantation. The same technique which made the farming possible at some point of time, preventing it during the later period of time. So this was the reason that yes, when they started farming, they when started having the agriculture, water was the best thing. But later on, that water it became the reason of their declination. Okay, so when the water was evaporated, this is what happened, and these are the ruins of the leftovers of the ancient civilization of Mesopotamia. Now, if we come to the recap, we have read about the code of Hammurabi, that it was a very strict code, and it was not at all justified code because it was good for the poor, for the riches, but it was bad for the poor. Famous rulers, we have discussed about the famous ruler. The two of them was the Hammurabi and Nebuchadnezzar. Then we have discussed about the architecture, and the one thing we have discussed was the Hanging Gardens of Babylon and the invention of the calendars, that they have divided the calendar into 12 months depending on upon the cycle of the moon, but just because the cycle of the moon they are shorter 11 days, that's why they have introduced a third year after every third year, that is of lunar year, after every third year, a year, lunar year. Then comes their religion, that they do not believe on one god, they have many gods. And as they used to believe in astronomy, there's a god for moon, there's a god for sun, there's a god for thunder, there is a god for rain. So they believe that if there is an earthquake, there is no rain. If there is a drought is just because their gods are unhappy. And we have discussed about decline of Mesopotamia. That the two main reason is the war and the faulty irrigation system and the flooding as well. So the written task for this lesson is: what was the code of Hammurabi? Explain its importance. Name the language of Mesopotamians and explain its importance in history. Who was Nebuchadnezzar and why is he famous? So these are all the things, all the questions whose answers are easily available in your book. All you have to go through it, read it, and the best way to read the history is to search the internet. You may find many links, you find many resources which would help you out. And I'm going to add a few YouTube videos. I'm going to give you the links of few YouTube videos which you're going to go through, and I really recommend you to have them after these three lessons, when you have the whole theory, the whole ideas, the main points of the Mesopotamian civilization, and then go and watch the video, and it will help you out. Thank you so much.